This is AIST Technical Editor Jennifer Emling, and I'm here at AISTech 2018 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on May 9th, 2018. I'm here with Hatch Associates Managing Director of Bulk Metals, Ted Lyon. So, hi, Ted.
Good morning.
Thanks for agreeing to do this with us.
Well, thanks, Jennifer. I'm happy.
Yeah. So I guess we can start at the beginning. So tell me a bit about where you grew up and how you became an engineer.
All right. That's a long story. I'll try and keep it short. I grew up in southwest Pennsylvania, and we're sitting in southeast Pennsylvania here, and it might as well be the moon because we don't pay attention to the other side of the state. But I'm one of 6 kids. My extended family is primarily from southwest Pennsylvania, and my father was a engineer. Not trained formally, but he ended up president of the engineering company in any event. And so all of myself and my 5 siblings were kind of pushed in that direction as we grew up. Not all of us followed it, but I have an older brother that's an engineer, myself, a younger brother that's an engineer, so electrical, mechanical, material science, so we have it all covered. And have a deep family tree and history in the industries of southwest Pennsylvania, including the steel industry. So.
Great. So I believe you went to the University of Pittsburgh. Why did you choose that school?
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of influence, obviously, from my family, but we have a lot invested in the University of Pittsburgh now. My older brother went there. I went there. I went there twice. My wife is from the University of Pittsburgh. My son got his graduate degree from the University of Pittsburgh. I have a younger brother and a younger sister that got their undergraduate degrees at the University of Pittsburgh. So I'm not quite sure why we didn't have any more imagination than that. But it's a good school. It's close to home, and we are all very happy with the education and training we got there.
Did you have any professors or anyone that really kind of was a mentor to you during that time?
I did very well in engineering school. I graduated at the top of my class, but I wouldn't say I was one that was very well connected with all of the faculty. You know, I went to class, I paid attention, I studied, and I did well. I think the influences in my career were probably supervisors and leaders I ultimately worked for when I got out in the industry.
So yeah, getting into the industry. Tell me about your first job in the industry. You started in oil and gas, correct?
Yeah, so that's a little different than a lot of AIST members, but since AIME has SP, the Society of Petroleum Engineers, it all fits. But I started my career with Conoco, and in their chemicals division, I ended up in Baltimore, Maryland, right out of school at a linear alkyl benzene plant, which is a plant that makes biodegradable surfactants for things that everybody knows, like Tide and Lux and the detergents, laundry detergents, dishwashing soaps, that type of thing. Most people wouldn't realize that you start with chlorine and benzene and normal paraffins to make soap, none of which you'd want by themselves, but so I started in the oil and oil derivatives industry. I ended up in Louisiana at a big petrochemical complex for Conoco. We made ethylene, vinyl chloride monomer, polyvinyl chloride, normal paraffins, jet fuels, stuff like that. And then ultimately in Aberdeen, Mississippi. And I was superintendent of a polyvinyl chloride manufacturing facility where we took vinyl chloride monomer, which we made in Louisiana, and then polymerized it to make PVC, to make things that everybody recognizes like PVC pipe and wire and cable insulation and things like that.
So, you had quite a transition then from oil and gas into more the bulk metals industry. Can you tell me a little bit about how that transition went for you?
Sure. It's serendipity in a lot of ways, but so I spent about 10 years with Conoco, and we had our first and only child in Mississippi, and we chose to move back closer to family about 10 years into my career. So I left Conoco and certainly for no other reason to get closer to family, because Conoco was a tremendous training ground, a tremendous company. Still is today. It's a little different than it was back then, but it's still a very prominent oil company today. And but we moved back to Pittsburgh, and my father was running a engineering company that was part of a construction company called Eichleay, and so I went to work for Eichleay as head of their process division to generate business for them in the petrochemical and process chemicals industries in the Pittsburgh region, primarily to do engineering and construction projects.
So you worked with your dad at this company. Do you want to talk a bit about what that was like?
Yeah. So in preparation for this, I read a little bit about Dick Teets. I read the transcript from Dick Teets' oral history, which Dick Teets is another one of those guys that people will remember for a long time, because he had a tremendous impact on the industry in recent modern times. But he thought he was going to go to work for Alcoa because his father worked for Alcoa, and he had himself all set up for that in life, until his dad said, "No, you can't work for Alcoa, because I'm a boss here and I'll be able to influence things I shouldn't, and people see that the wrong way. You need to go somewhere else." Well, I was concerned about that when I went to work for the company my father worked for, but he was in a completely different division. So the only help he gave me is he passed my resume to the owner of the company, and it was up to him whether or not he wanted to talk to me or not, and then it was up to me whether or not I impressed him enough to go to work for him. So I never really had any direct reporting relationship with my father. In fact, the side of the business he was in was different. The influence my father had, he went to Slippery Rock University, and anybody from southwestern Pennsylvania knows what that is. And it was a teacher's college in the early days, and he was a teacher. And he taught physics and math in a high school called Montour High School outside of Pittsburgh. And I still remember this story. He told me his initial salary was $3,405 a year. And so 2 years into it, he went and asked for a raise. They said no, and he quit. So he went to work for a small engineering company in Sewickley, PA called Green Engineering, and taught himself engineering on the board. And so, as I said earlier, he's not a formally trained engineer, but he learned it the hard way. And he ended up president of a division of Eichleay Engineers and a precursor company called Peter F. Loftus Corporation. And there are a lot of landmarks in the Pittsburgh area with his fingerprints on them. And he was involved in institutional commercial projects, primarily big hospital projects and public infrastructure, that type of thing. But he was an engineer's engineer, and he had 6 kids. Told every one of them, if they want to make them something out of themselves in life, they have to be an engineer. And 3 of us listened to that and did it. The other 3 did different things that are equally as successful because they had the same influence, but they chose different career paths. So he was a big influence on what I ultimately did, but I have absolutely no regrets.
See, I was getting more in like the technical side of things. So what are some of the biggest technical challenges that you've experienced in your career?
So I talked about the first third of my career with Conoco. The next piece of it was in the construction and engineering business, and for the last 16 years, I've been working for Hatch Associates. And so, as managing director of bulk metals, I have responsibility for about a third of our metals business globally. And it'll be interesting to the AIST folks here, but my responsibility is not only iron and steel making, but also the aluminum value chain. And so I can't say that in front of certain people here, but it works for TMS members, which is also part of AIME. So I've got TMS, SPE, and now AIST all covered. But at any rate, I have responsibility for our global business for iron and steel making, as well as our light metals business. And so we do advisory services, technical advisory, business advisory, project development, technology development, and project execution all over the world. Projects that range from consulting studies to multi-billion-dollar capital investments. some of our largest projects right now are in the Middle East, China. We do a lot of work in South America, all over North America, and in fact, Russia and CIS countries also. So we're truly global. We're involved in the commodities businesses globally. We have two other metals business units. One is base metals, copper, zinc, that type of thing, nickel, and also a minerals business, iron ore, potash, titanium dioxide, things like that. So Hatch is very engaged in the commodities business, particularly metals around the world, and I have responsibility for a third of that. The biggest challenge is being able to bring the best talent in the world to solve our clients' problems, and we pride ourselves in that. Our manifesto says that we're entrepreneurs with a technical soul, and what we want to be to our clients is the best technical services provider that money can buy and help them achieve their business goals. So those are the challenges I deal with every day. It's not about inventing something in my case. It's about delivering service to our customers in a way that helps them achieve their business goals.
You can talk about a specific past project that really stood out to you as something that you're very proud of?
Well, I'll talk about one that that was very interesting. Never got built. I won't say who the client is at this stage, but it was very interesting from a development point of view. And it was a project where we did a feasibility study to build a greenfield 10 million ton a year steelmaking facility in India. And it offered me the opportunity. It was probably about 15 years ago, and it was the first time I got to go to India, which is a tremendously eye-opening experience, both culturally and from a business point of view. And it was a very challenging project because in North America we look at projects, typically infrastructure exists, and we get to build plants around existing public infrastructure that a state or a local government will provide for you. You go in some places in the world, no infrastructure exists. The first thing you have to concern yourself is, where will you get water? Where will you get power? Where will you get a rail line? Where will you get a road? And before you can even think about the technical aspects of iron and steel making, you have to think about the logistics and the infrastructure necessary to build a big industrial complex. And a 10 million ton a year steel plant is big in anybody's book. There are no 10 million ton a year steel complexes in North America anymore. They're all in Asia or places like India. And so from a challenge point of view, it was a significant challenge just to address the infrastructure needs long before you can address the manufacturing technology and those types of aspects of project development.
We can kind of move on to, did you receive any awards or honors during your career, and you want to go into detail about that?
Well, for me, there are awards and honors, I think, that are given publicly, and we could talk about those a little bit. But for me, the honor I've had is the opportunity to work in the industry across a broad range of things. But over the last 16 years, actually more than that, going back to my days with Eichleay Corporation, primarily in the metals industry for the last 25 years. And the progressive opportunities I've got to lead diverse multicultural teams for the execution of projects around the world is the biggest honor. Some industry honors have come through associations with organizations like AIME and AIST. And I think for anybody to have a complete career, they need a combination of things. They need education, you need employment with an employer you like to go to work for every day, and you need professional stimulation from outside sources. AIME and AIST provide that professional stimulation. And I've been involved with AIST since long before it was formed in the Iron and Steel Society days. I was on the executive committee and treasurer for that organization. I was involved in the merger with AISE, and then I served as the treasurer of AIST for the first 6 years, and now I'm on the foundation. And I was fortunate enough also to be a trustee of AIME for 4 years, and I received a honorary membership from AIME, and that means a lot to me. And I'm not sure what people recognize when they hear AIME, but I think of the Founders Society and UEF and New York City and AICHE, ASME, ASCE, but the Founders Societies, which were fundamental to the industrial development of the United States. And AIME is a place in history building an organization of like-minded individuals that drove the industrial development of the United States. And so becoming an honorary member of AIME is probably the pinnacle of that whole association with AIME and AIST.
Getting into the membership society. So how did you first hear about AIME, and how did you begin your involvement?
Well, in school, you hear. I certainly heard about ISS and AIME, and but the first thing as a mechanical engineer you do is you join ASME, right? And I was a member of ASME for probably 15 years. And I actually discontinued that, which I feel a little guilty about. But ASME was another founder society, so very important. But it was so large that it was almost impersonal in a lot of ways. When I had the opportunity to join both ISS and AISE, it was in the early '90s, and it was because I went to work for a company that valued membership in those organizations, and the entire client community that I was dealing with had membership positions in both those organizations. So I joined both. I began to attend conferences and ended up with an association with a former treasurer of ISS who suggested that I might be good in that position. And so I interviewed with the executive committee and they selected me, and 30 years later, here I am. So
yeah. So yeah, it really seems that having the company support for these membership these professional associations really made a difference for you. So does Hatch really have a lot of support for your employees joining these sort of societies like AIME?
Well, absolutely. Hatch, in particular, we hire the best and brightest that we can find from everywhere in the world, and professional associations that allow our employees to expand their technical skills so that we can apply that to our client base is absolutely critical. And so we're very involved in professional societies all over the world. The equivalent societies in Canada were fundamentally our origins are in Canada, although we are a global company now. But the CIM in Canada, as well as AIME, kind of sister organizations, we're very involved with them. Our executives are business executives, but they are the top technical people in their fields in all cases, including our CEO. And so what we bring to our clients is technical expertise, and you can't, it's engineering is a lifelong education, and these societies offer the opportunity to continue our education past your formal university education. I have this saying that the half-life of a 4-year undergraduate degree is about 4 years. And so if I understand half-lives, if you don't continue to extend yourself, educate yourself, then what you've learned in the past will be of little meaning in the future. So we put a lot of emphasis on people participating in this. And we have a good crowd of people here in Philadelphia this week.
Kind of going into education in general. I mean, you're an AIST Foundation trustee and have been very active with that. So in terms of the importance of things like the foundation and attracting new generations of talent, can you go into detail about that?
So that's a big deal, and I'll address that from my role as a trustee in the foundation. And I'm president-elect. I'll be president next May, I think, for 2 years. And I've been involved in the foundation from the ISS days when we had about 10% of the financial resources that we have today. So In fact, probably less than 10%. So I've seen it grow to where it is today, where we can spend about $700,000 or $800,000 a year in developing young professionals for the industry. Also talk about it in terms of my role in Hatch in attracting the best talent for our organization, because they're not mutually exclusive. We participate, and I participate in the foundation because I truly believe that attracting the best talent to the industry is key to the sustainability of the industry. I also believe it's not only the obligation of organizations like AIST and AIME, but it's a key obligation of the industry companies to grow and nurture new talent. And the AIST Foundation does a tremendous job of joining the companies that are involved and have a stake in AIST with the universities that are producing the students that will populate the key leadership and technical jobs in the industry moving forward. We also participate with our financial resources in Hatch to provide resources to the foundation, because we see that as a great place to hire engineers. And we have many AIST scholars in our organization, and will continue to. And so I see the money that we give the organization as a tremendous investment, and we're paid back multiple fold in terms of the quality of the students that we get in the organization. The steel industry traditionally, in the last couple decades, has not had a great reputation with young students, and young students are attracted to new things, and I think lose sight of the fact that basic industry is very highly automated. It's very technically advanced, and it's fundamental to the quality of life that we have. And basic industry is going to be with us for a long time. We get everything we have through two means: we either mine it or we grow it. And as long as we're digging holes in the earth looking for the things that will allow us to maintain the quality of life we have, then we're going to need engineers with innovative ideas and the best skills to make best use of those resources.
What advice would you have for a young professional that is joining the industry?
Well, that's a good question. I turned 60 last year, and when you turn 60, you think about your thoughts go to different things than they did when you're 20, 30, and 40. But fundamentally, one of my biggest obligations, as managing director in the Hatch organization, is to ensure that we have excellent people coming up through the ranks. And one of my primary obligations now is to ensure that we have great leadership, great talent, and the organization is left in better hands than I found it when I got there. And so we strive to find the best people that we can hire, and we maintain great relationships with universities and organizations like AIST to fill the funnel. And then we nurture these people through mentoring programs, through informal mentoring programs and coaching, and making sure that people get the right experiences in their career so that they can combine their technical training with real-world experiences to progress their careers. So nothing comes easy. Study hard, work hard, strive to get the right experience, find a mentor. Mentorship's a two-way street. I think the young person needs to look for somebody they can learn from. The senior people need to look for the bright up-and-comers and latch onto them. When you get those kinds of connections made, then you build good relationships to grow good people. And so that's a primary responsibility I have in the last few years of my career.
Sort of to wrap up our discussion, so what has made working in your field meaningful to you personally, and what's your favorite part of working?
Well, I go back to your first question about how I got involved in engineering. I never really had any other thought um, as a high school student about what I might want to do other than engineering. I thought about being a fighter pilot for a while, but that didn't work out. But so engineering was the next best thing. And I had a lot of influence from my family. But it was easy for me to choose engineering as a path forward, and I truly enjoy what I do every day. Are there frustrations? Sure. Are there issues? Sure. But one of the best things is seeing things get planned, things getting designed, and things getting built, and then products come out of what's being built. And doing it in an efficient way, a responsible way, being innovative, making sure the facilities are safe, making sure the construction of the facility is done in a safe manner. We do all this for the public good. I'm a professional engineer. By that, I mean I'm a licensed engineer in 6 states, and the reason why engineers have licensure is the states have an obligation to protect the public, and licensed engineers fundamentally have a responsibility to do things in a way that protects the public. And so first and foremost, we do this to improve the quality of life for our situation in society. And so I think that's fundamental to being a good engineer. And so it's about being innovative, about being safe, and about designing and building sustainable facilities that progress the human condition.
Very well said. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about or discuss?
Well, I'll just close on a comment I made earlier. I think for me, AIME, AIST through AIME is an organization that allows to connect the past with the future. And if you just look at the names, I heard just the other day in John Spear's Keith Brimacombe lecture and I didn't know this, Herbert Hoover was the president of AIME in 1920, and he was our president less than a decade later. There's an argument about which job he did better, but I wouldn't hold him accountable for the Great Depression. But people like Andrew Carnegie, Herbert Hoover, in more recent times, Ken Iverson, these names are bulwarks of the industrial age of the United States, and they all have a common thread back through an organization like AIME. And so I think we shouldn't forget that, because I think those are things for people to strive to today when they join the organization, and look for the impact they can make on society and on young people coming up through the industry.
So AIME is going to be celebrating its 150th anniversary in 2021. I know you're engaged in some of the efforts to celebrate this. Can you tell me a bit more about what you guys have planned?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I touched on that earlier about the importance of AIME and the evolution of industry in North America. And so recognizing the 150th anniversary is critically important, and it's an opportunity to, I think, reestablish the importance of the organization and the evolution of the 4 organizations that were spawned by AIME. And so in the 150th anniversary, what we hope to do is put AIME squarely in the spotlight again and recognize its importance and contribution to the development of the engineering profession and their contribution to society, and the importance of it moving forward. And I would expect there will be another celebration at the bicentennial, 53 years from now, something like that. But so anyhow, we're very much looking forward to it. I'm thrilled to be on the planning committee, and hopefully we'll make a big impact on all our member societies and others that join the party.
So where do you see the steel industry going forward in the next couple years?
So that's a good question, Jen. I'm heavily invested in the industry as well as other competing materials. So I get to see steel from a perspective of a material that has to be selected by the ultimate users, and there will always be a role for steel. There's more steel produced in the world than every other metal combined. It's very diverse in its use, from structural steels all the way to the third generation advanced high strength steels we heard about in the conference this week. And steel development will continue, and its uses will become more diverse. I think sometimes we are our own worst enemy in the steel industry, in that we don't promote its value and its diversity. And in fact, using the word steel to describe everything from plain Jane structural type steel all the way to the advanced high strength steels is probably a disservice to the material, because it's very different from one grade to the next. So I see lots of opportunity for steel. I see, we've always heard about aluminum versus steel in the auto industry. Well, I'm involved in aluminum plants and steel plants, so I don't have a dog in that fight. But I think the materials that provide the physical properties, the green footprint ultimately, which steel has a very good green footprint, particularly when 65% of the steel produced in the United States is recycled, then I think we have a very bright future in the steel industry. And the technical developments for advanced grades, that ultra high strength, lightweighting opportunities is phenomenal. And the progress that's been made just in the last few years has been absolutely phenomenal. So I think we'll see more of that moving forward, and steel has a very bright future.
So, I mean, have had a really fascinating life and a really fascinating career. And where do you see the future heading for you?
Well, like I said, I just turned 60, but I don't think in terms of quitting. I just think in terms of transitioning. I'm an engineer, and retirement doesn't mean you're no longer an engineer. And I have an MBA from the University of Pittsburgh also, but I don't consider myself a business guy. I consider myself an engineer, and I'll be an engineer long after I retire, so to speak. One thing about the organization I work for, Hatch, is nobody really retires. If you have something to contribute, there's always an opportunity to contribute. Maybe I won't work 80 hours a week anymore and travel all over the world like I do, but I'll be a little more selective down the road. But I'm sure I have 4 or 5 good years left in me doing what I'm doing now, and beyond that, I hope to contribute where I can bring technical talent of a specialized nature, and where I can help young people progress. And I've often said, you've made it in the world when you get paid for what you know, not for what you do. And I think somewhere out in the future, I'll maybe get paid for what I know. But at any rate, that's how I see the future.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to share your story with AIME and their oral history project. And thanks for coming today.
All right. Thanks very much, Jen. It's a pleasure.